Hello and welcome to a new update for an Unwound Clockwork. And finally, after a little pause last month, I can tell you of progress again. So, what you're seeing back there is the last stage of the city model we have worked on. It is the thickest stage, which is chronologically earliest in the movie, but it's also the most detailed version of this model. So I'm really happy to say that we have completed it last month. So this version has even more scaffolding and construction going on, and also the entire shape of the column is a bit more rough than the other versions. And we are particularly proud of this bucket wheel excavator type thing here on the side of the column, chewing away the rock. And this one is actually moving in all of the shots thanks to a tiny stepper motor hidden on the back side, which can be controlled via Dragon Frame. These tiny motors don't have any torque at all, but it's enough to drive a warm drive and this little wheel. And I think it's really valuable to have that because it gives a bit more life to the otherwise very static model. And thanks to this automation with the motor, it's also very easy to do and doesn't take too much time after it's set up. If you're interested in the technicalities of this, then please check out my video about set automation I did a while ago, because there I go into all the details of how to make something like this work. So I mostly made the mechanical components here and the electrical stuff for the lighting, and Maurice built all the little scaffolding and miniatures and painted everything. And I think we're both very happy with how it turned out, and this version of the model is certainly the best and most detailed version of the three we did so far, which is quite convenient because this also happens to be the one which is most visible in the movie. Speaking of which, we were also able to start shooting with this model. First up was the completion of this fading shot, which had been set up for many months before, and now finally the last puzzle piece was in place, the thickest stage of the column. And yeah, in this stage you can see how everything is growing in the city while the column below is shrinking. So I think that worked out nicely once everything is lined up properly in post-production. And then we also made another camera movement just up the column, arriving at the city. And this one will function as a transition in the movie. All these shots made use of this free exposure setup again, with the base exposure, the masking exposure and the lighting exposure, which is very convenient for post-production. And there are quite a few more shots with this set, of course, and we will do them at the next occasion, which will probably be October, because there's something else planned for September. So next month, Inka will be again at my place, helping me with the post-production of the boss office scene again, which we hopefully finish in September. Speaking of the boss character, there are also some news from Ulrich, who has prepared 4 new replacement mouthpieces for this character. These pieces will help him to move his head downwards, while his chin is going to grow a bit like a toad. So there's one particular shot in the movie where this special ability is required. And yeah, so he prepared the 3D models, and then Thomas Meissner, who helped us in the past with the 3D printing, did the printing again. And yeah, thank you so much. The results are extremely good as usual. And then Ulrich glued in the magnets and did the airbrush on this. And now this extra replacement pieces are also ready to be animated, hopefully also in the upcoming months. A single shot, but a nice one, I think. And of course, I also made some progress on these light boards I'm developing. They are now able to play back light sequences autonomously without Dragon Frame, and there's also a very rudimentary way to program them without Dragon Frame. So that's really nice, and there's also a new prototype version on its way to me. So I'm really looking forward to that, but I won't go into much detail here because I plan to do a video just about this topic at the end of September. And lastly, one little announcement. At the beginning of last month, I gave a short interview for the stop motion newsletter about my armature making. And if you're interested in general stop motion news, then I highly recommend this newsletter, Stopmosphere. It was founded by a couple of friends of mine. They're publishing once a month about various news in the fields of stop motion. So yeah, there's a link in the description down below if you're interested, and also one to the interview I gave. I think that's about it from the main news, but now let's talk about the robot kits, which were also my main task this month again, because this time it includes one of the most complicated single components. Okay, so this month's robot kit includes finally the head of the character, including nose and eyes. Then one little wheel with teeth. It's not really a gear because the teeth are just decorative or for holding it. Then we have a little washer, 3 4mm long screws, and one very tiny 2mm long screw. So of course the main attraction this month is the head with the eyes and nose. And originally I also wanted to send you the eyepiece separately so you could pop it in the head. But turned out this was quite a difficult operation, so I did it for you and it's already loosely inside the head. So this eyepiece of the robot is quite a difficult piece. It has different expressions on the 4 sides of these little square pieces. Basically the slits symbolize closed eyes, then we have a set of sad expressions, one normally round open eyes and a set of angry eyes. This concept was originally conceived for our main character, but later we switched to these other half-moon shaped rotating eyes because they could change between expressions a bit more gradually than this ones. But obviously these got reused on another character and now I'm replicating it for your robot kits. If you look at this part, it's fairly obvious that it's quite a complicated one. It's machined from a single piece of square brass, which I first milled to size, and then I milled these tiny circles for the eyes. The main difficulty was producing those half round eyepieces for the sad and angry eyes. So I used a little trick. First I machined out just round holes, and then I milled away a little angled section on these eyes. And then I cut little pieces from another piece of brass, which I then soldered into place like this. And obviously everything looks quite nasty afterwards, so the next step was milling it down to a smooth surface again. Then rotating the piece around and doing the same thing again for the other sets of half-round eyes. On this occasion I used silver soldering paste, which someone suggested to me, and turns out it's much easier to use than the little tiny pieces of solder with the pliers and stuff. It's much easier to have it in a slurry like this. It's basically just silver powder with flux. This was a bit more challenging because I had to make sure that the other eyes on the other side of the piece don't melt again, so the little soldered pieces wouldn't fall off when soldering the other side. That's the reason I have a bit of sheet metal below the soldering plate, so it draws away more heat from the part. Yeah, then again smoothing everything down on the mill. Next step was on the lathe, turning down the round sections on the square rod. The end pieces with the little features to hold it in place in the head. little thread on the ends, and of course this middle section between the eyes. Then I switched to the mill again to machine a little slit on the remaining face for the closed eyes. Then it required a lot of filing and polishing to get rid of all the nasty sharp edges and give the eyes a nice surface finish. And in the last step I used some paint for the only time on this robot to fill in the eyes so they're a nice contrasty black color. So yeah, a lot of operations on a single piece. I hope you appreciate that. And then I popped it into the head, of course. The head itself is far more straightforward, very similar to the torso piece, just a piece of bronze sheet metal which was laser cut for me by another company. I used my mill to machine some V-grooves to aid with bending. A bit finicky to get it right so everything lines up perfectly. But I got it to work, and the nose, I also machined a rough piece, like a very slim cone from brass on my lathe, and then just bent it into this S shape with pliers, and then used some more time for polishing to get rid of all the plier marks and stuff, so it's a nice shiny nose. This one is just soldered with soft solder in place, because I didn't want to warp and oxidize the entire head again, because it's very hard to polish beneath the nose and stuff. So this one is not as strong, please be careful with it, but I think it should hold up to normal usage. Okay, with these explanations out of the way, I think we're finally ready to start the main assembly. But there's also a little change to be performed on the pieces from last month, and that's this little set screw on the neck of the character. When looking at it, I found it's sticking out of the neck quite a bit, and this might limit the movement of the jaw later on. So I decided to buy some even shorter 2mm screws, so we could now screw out this old 3mm screw, keep it, we will use it later on the head, and replace it with the new 2mm one, just like this. And once it's inside, it should stick out far less than the 3mm screw before that, and still make a rigid connection, of course. Now for the headpiece. If you rotate it to the back, there are two holes on the sheet metal where it connects to itself, but those probably won't line up perfectly as you get it. So the first task is to squeeze the housing into place until those holes line up, and then use two of the 4mm screws and pop them inside like this, so the housing is basically held in place. And then we take our robot and insert the head over this neck pieces in such a manner that the threads on the neck line up with the screws. Might be a bit fiddly to get right, but once you're in place, it should be fairly easy to screw in those screws into the neck, like this. Tighten them thoroughly, and just like this, the head is attached to the character and should be able to look up and down and rotate. Next up, we're looking to the right side of our character, or just rotate the head so the right side is facing up. And here we're taking the little washer, putting it over that stud which sticks out from the eyepiece, and use the 3mm screw we removed from the neck and insert it into the thread, on the right side of the head, just like this. At some point the eyes would probably start to rotate, preventing you from screwing in the screw further. So just use a finger, put it in from the top side of the head and hold the eyepieces in place so they can't rotate. And that way you should be able to tighten the screw like this. Then we rotate the entire head to the other side, to the left one. And on this side, the eyepiece should stick out a tiny bit further. And there we're using this gear-like wheel and putting it over this eye stud. And using the last remaining 4mm screw through that gear piece and also screw it into the eye rod. And just like before, it might be necessary to hold the eyes in place to prevent them from rotating. Yeah, and just like this, you should be able to change his expression very gradually by rotating this little wheel on the left side of his head. So this concludes this month's assembly. Of course, the jaw and the top of his head will follow in another month. But for now, I think it's really nice that he's finally able to look around and express himself and look back at you, his maker. So yeah, I hope you have fun with that. And yeah, until next time. So yeah, that's about it from this month's parts. Please bear with me if some of the packages take a couple of days longer than usual, because I'm still in the progress of finishing all those eyes. But yeah, it will work out. Thanks for sticking with me and for supporting my endeavors on this project and my other mechanical works. Yeah, much appreciated. See you next month again, and bye bye.
Mm-hmm.